Okay, so we are going to install ROS Melodic and on our Ubuntu virtual machines. And I'll go ahead and pull up a little camera of me. Great. So what we'll start out with then is this terminal window open and the ROS.org installation of Melodic on Ubuntu page pulled up. So Control Alt T will pull up a terminal window and should look something like this. And then you can open up Firefox and go to wiki.ros.org, installation, Melodic, and then under Ubuntu, and that'll get you to this page here, or you can just look at the URL. This is listed in the notes here, wiki.ros.org/melodic/installation/Ubuntu. So great. So we're assuming you already have got your Ubuntu installed in your virtual machine, or in any way that you have Ubuntu installed. Could be installed natively, it could be in a dual boot mode, whatever it is, should work in any of these cases. So we're going to install ROS Melodic Marenia now, and we'll make sure we follow these notes here. So we're going to go through the first step here. Configure your Ubuntu repositories. So this guide, there's a little guide here that will make sure that this is the case. I believe that it is by default set up to allow restricted universe and multiverse apps to be installed. However, it is not necessarily the case. Maybe you've already had an existing installation and you've changed it. So we'll open up the Ubuntu software tab. So I believe you can get there from, I did this a while ago, so I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure you get to there. Oops, clicked on something extra. Let's see, installed. No, that's not it. Software and updates, that's where you can get to it. Yeah, so when I was in this app, I clicked this drop down box and I was able to go to software and updates, which is the tab that you're looking for. So make sure that Canonical supported free and open source software, just main, community maintained free and open source software universe, proprietary drivers for devices, restricted, and software restricted by copyright, legal issues, multiverse, are all checked, okay? You could also check source code, that would be fine too, but that's at least those 4 have to be checked. So, great. Let's see. I don't know if there's anything else from here we needed. Great. All right. Oh, there was I think I did install source code. So let's go back to that. Sorry, I do think there's no reason not to have that checked, in my opinion. So let's go ahead and check source code. Enter your password. And I think that should be fine. Reload. Loading software list. Getting cache. Should be fine. I don't think that was necessary, but I just want to make sure we don't shoot ourselves in the foot right off the bat. Okay, great. So now that we've got that sort of preliminary step out of the way, we can close that and go back to our installation guide here. So first we're going to set up our sources.list. So sourcing different software is something that you're going to do a lot in a software development environment, especially in Linux. And we're going to do that throughout this guide. So we're going to set up that list of sources here. So we'll copy this command, Control C, we'll do that. And then over in the command window, Shift Control V, we'll paste it. That's a kind of a really handy trick. Enter your password. And that was a pretty minor change. What we were doing there is we were going to write this line here to the file, which is at the directory, in the directory, etc. apt, and then the file is sources.list, which is just a text file. Oh yeah, and it also has this .d, and then it has as a sub file ROS latest.list. So the list.d files have multiple lists in them, and this is the list that we're writing to, ROS latest. This will insert this environment variable here, LSB release, will evaluate to melodic main, or sorry, melodic is what it will, because there's already main in this command. So you could also manually put in melodic here, and it would write the correct thing to that file. And if you wanted to, you could take a look at that. I think, oh, you might not have Sublime text installed. I would highly recommend that you get a nice text editor installed on your machine, and I guess I'll show you how to do that. Go to your,
when you copied and pasted that,
yeah,
when you copied and pasted that, does it have to be open in the Ubuntu, like on Firefox, or can you do it from like a separate, like just on your main browser?
Yeah, outside of the virtual machine, you can. I haven't gotten that working, but you have to have this working, the shared clipboard working, which
shared clipboard.
Yeah, so under devices, shared clipboard should be bidirectional. So you can copy and paste from your host operating system to this operating system, and vice versa. Also, drag and drop is nice to enable. When I first did this, I wasn't having success copying and pasting back and forth with that enabled, so I didn't look into it very far. It does work on some other configurations I've had, so it's probably something to do with my setup.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's working for me either. So it looks like, so do you just open up Firefox then, and then open up the link basically?
Yeah, exactly. So you can, go to wiki.ros.org. Or just go to ros.org and then go to the wiki. And then under that wiki, you can find this, or you can go to the URL, either one. Yeah.
All right.
So I would recommend installing Sublime Text as a text editor, plain text editor in Ubuntu. So you can go to the software, Ubuntu software file. Thank you. Got a delivery. And search for Sublime, and then Sublime Text is there, and then install. It's pretty nice. It's a very nice text editor that I use for writing code. It's not a full IDE. It's just a text editor, but it's just a really nice text editor. So that's that. So if I do, just for fun, Subble will open it, something in Sublime. Let's see if etc. apt sources dot list dot d ROS latest dot list. By the way, there's tab completion in here. I highly recommend that. Using tab.
Where did you go for the Sublime Text
Oh, yeah, I went over to the Ubuntu software. And then under Ubuntu software, I did a search, and for Sublime, and this,
I see.
This is it. And it works just like the Apple App Store, or like the Google Android store or whatever. But for your Ubuntu installation. So you get Sublime Text, and then you can use this Subble command, which will open up the file that you give it. The next thing that you type in will be interpreted as a file, and it'll open it up in Sublime Text. So I just typed in that file that we just wrote to, and it opened it up in Sublime Text. And I just wanted to show you that this line that we wrote went into this file. So this is a way to check, make sure that was correct or a successful command that you just ran. Notice that Bionic got put in there. Oh yes, Bionic, because that's the Ubuntu installation, not Melodic. That was a mistake earlier when I said that. Not the ROS version, but the version of Ubuntu. So yeah, so that gives you the line here, and we're good to go. We succeeded in this 1.2 step. So now setting up our keys. So this is in order to allow us to have to do our command line installation of software. So we'll want to copy this first one, which essentially just adds a key to our key server here. So we can paste it. Remember, it's Control-Shift-V to paste, and then enter. Sets up a key for connection. Hopefully that just runs good. And then if you have any connection issues, there are a couple alternative key servers here. And then there's also this other option. If this was not successful, this first version of setting up your keys, this version hopefully will work for you.
Yeah, it looks like it did.
Great. So now in installation, now we're ready to do our installation. Let's do sudo apt update. So this is to update all of our packages for getting apps installed from the command line. So sudo apt update. And this takes varying amounts of time depending on your environment and connection, but it was pretty quick for us. And then we want to do the full desktop installation of Melodic. So copy this first one, the desktop full install, and we'll paste it, execute. So want to continue, capital Y, enter. So it's 2.2 gigabytes. And it has to download all that. So that might take a while. I am hoping that for us, it doesn't take a while. And then, wow, yeah, it's going very, very fast for me, but that's kind of lucky. It depends on when you do this and if there are other people downloading it from the server and your own network connection. I have a pretty fast network connection, so it's going pretty fast.
Yeah, it's probably going to take me a while.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I might end up being ahead of you a while. We could just put this on pause and come back to it also. We'll just kind of see how things go. I think the last time I did this, it took maybe 20 minutes or something. So yeah, so what we might do, I might put this on pause for now, and then we'll come back when this installation is finished, and then hopefully yours is finished as well. So why don't we plan to meet back in a little bit. Let's see.
Right.
Okay, so this finished. Didn't take too long in the end. So let's continue on with the installation. This next section here, 1.5, has kind of a gotcha in it. So I don't know why, but for some reason, they don't tell you that you need to install ROS step before you can use it here. So we've had a few folks in the class actually go off on the wrong path on this. So hopefully we will get all on the same page at this point. So we need to install ROS step, and we can do that by using sudo apt install Python ROSDEP. Now, there's also ROSDEP 2, but it is experimental, so I don't recommend using ROSDEP 2. So type that in. It will download it, install it. Great. So now we should be able to do section 1.5, which is initialize ROSDEP. Sudo ROSDEP init. Okay, and then ROSDEP update. Okay, so now we're at the point where we're gonna set up our environment a little bit more, and we could. So I mentioned before that there are these. There's this concept in especially POSIX or Unix-based operating systems of sourcing files. So when you do that, it's like you're loading in commands that will become available to you in that session of the shell that you're in. So we're using bash shell here in the terminal, and once you source a file, source file which has different names to them, but setup.bash is the one that we're sourcing this time. This will allow us to have all of these ROS commands available to us in this session. It's a little bit like if you've used Python before, it's a little bit like doing a load of a package into Python, where now that you've loaded in the package, all those commands are available to you. The same sort of thing works in this Unix-based bash session. And so we could do it every time we open up a terminal window. We could source our ROS melodic setup.bash, which is installed by default in the directory opt ROS melodic, and then setup.bash is there. But we are not going to want to have to remember that every time to source our ROS setup. So we are going to add it to our .bash rc file, which is called a dot file. So this is a little shorthand. The tilde is a shorthand in the bash shell for your home directory. So right now I am in pwd. You can see where you are. I'm in home Socrates. This is my I think I called myself Socrates. So the Socrates VirtualBox, I think, was the home folder I made. So I think I'm home already. But if I change directory to be at the root, okay, then that would be my current directory. If I changed my directory to be tilde, it would take me to my home directory, and there I am again in home Socrates. So that tilde is just shorthand for your home directory. Home Socrates. And then there's this file here, and if we use ls, it'll list out all the files in here, but it'll only list out, these are actually folders, it'll only list out folders that are not hidden. So there are dot files that are hidden. So .bash rc is in here. Well, actually, I'm pretty sure I have a bash rc by default, but let's see. I can open it in Sublime text, subl.bash rc, and my tab completion found it, so I know it's there. So I opened it up. This is just a default bash rc file, and this gets loaded by the terminal every single time you open up a new window in terminal. A new bash shell opens and it executes this .bash rc file, which is in your home folder. So great, we're gonna add this source, the ROS melodic, to our bash rc file, so that every time we open up a terminal window, these commands will be available to us. So let's do that. So that echo essentially just takes this, the next statement, and it is going to, like, it would just return, if you didn't use this next bit, it would just print it out in the command window. Instead of printing it out, we're going to pipe it in. We're going to actually, this is for writing to a file. So it'll write whatever it was going to echo out to this file, which is the bash RC file. So if we execute this, that's going to take this line and it's going to put it at the end of our bash RC file. So now let's open up our bash RC file again, scroll to the bottom, and sure enough, source opt ROS melodic setup.bash is in there. So now every time we open up a new window in our bash shell, in our terminal, we are going to have the ROS commands. Now, but this one, we haven't loaded it yet in this terminal session. So if we want them available to us in this session, we actually have to source the bash RC ourselves. So source, I am in that, so bash RC. And now I've sourced it. We're good. So I was able to just type in .bashrc because I was in the home folder. So if you aren't in the home folder, you would source the home directory .bashrc, which doesn't matter then which folder you're executing this from, and that would give you the source. Great. So we can ignore the rest of this. This is just saying if you just want to do it in the current shell once, you can just source this once, but we want to do it always. So we did that installation. We're not using the Z shell, we're using bash. So we don't need to worry about ZSH. Dependencies. So we're going to install some of the sort of basic dependencies that ROS programs usually will use. So we'll just go ahead and copy and paste that line. And we'll say capital Y for yes. It'll install those. And we're done. I mean, once this is done, we're done. So that's actually all we need to do. If everything is successful here, it should be pretty straightforward. Then you can start the ROS tutorials. I would recommend doing that. So if you click this, then we've got a whole list of them. They kind of build as you go, so don't just cherry pick. Start at 1 and go down. They're not very long, most of them. And they give you a good introduction to some things. I would say the most important one to do is 1, because it does a little bit of configuration on your ROS environment. And I might actually take us through this tutorial next time, because I think it's actually important to get catkin working and all that. So yes, this should be useful for us to do. So make sure that we do our installing and configuring your ROS environment tutorial after you get your installation set up. So if there are no further questions on installation, I'll go ahead and sign off for now.